let's continue with that Ryan Day conversation because Jeff and I yearly come on here, normally in December. It's been earlier and earlier in December just due to the nature of the sport. We kind of do an annual assessment of Ryan Day. And I know coming off the Michigan loss is going to sting a little bit. A lot of people want Ryan Day fired. Some say no, it was the injuries. That's why things didn't go right. Some say it was off with the play call. Like he's not calling the play, so give him a break. Whatever side of the fence you're on, we're here to just kind of have an honest conversation about Ryan Day, the head coach, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. And Jeff, that was ugly on Saturday.
Yeah.
It was not a good look. And I don't really think the worst look for me from Ryan Day was during the game. Trust me, losing sucks. Like, I'm not excusing the loss. Afterwards, after the fight was kind of settling down, there was a video of Ryan Day on Fox, and they kind of panned over, and he looked around and said, "What happened?" Now, I'm assuming he's asking what happened with the fight.
Yeah.
But the look on his face
kind
of looked mentally checked out.
Yes.
And that's not a good look. I'm not calling for his job right now. I'm going to talk about that later on in the show about what I think Ohio State should do moving forward with Ryan Day. But right now, with the way Ryan Day is talking and his body language, things don't look good, man.
Yeah, that was definitely I think maybe his worst performance. And again, Jay, we keep talking about it. And as far as Sesson, Ryan Day, it's another year to where all the boxes that we set up for Ryan Day to check this year, he barely checked them.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't beat Michigan. One of the biggest things that keeps the offensive game plan, and it just doesn't feel like he has control over, because everybody's like, oh, like you said, he's not the play caller. Yeah, but I remember when Urban Meyer used to just step in and say, stop doing whatever you're doing. He's a smart enough offensive guy to not sit there and beat his head against the wall like they did Saturday. His in-game coaching has not got better in 4 years. He really, really does not have I think he's too emotionally attached to the game. I know, everybody says like, oh, you need a guy that understands a rivalry. Sometimes you need a guy that understands it, but also just takes it as a football game. Urban was able to do both, but a lot of these great coaches around the country, they didn't all come from the school that they coached for. But they're just, if he would have coached that game like he coached, we'll say Indiana or some of the other, like even Nebraska, like, and remove the emotion from it, remove the pressure, he could have won that game, but he got caught up in it again, got caught up in the emotion, and he kind of just let it over. You could tell, just like you said, you could tell it overwhelmed him, and much like it did Will Howard. I think Will Howard, had help by getting smashed in the head early in the game.
That was a hit, man. That was a big
hit.
That
was one of those hits that really did change that game. It is what it is. I'm not saying it, dirty or anything. They could have called it, could have not called it. I don't care about that. I'm saying the effect of that hit. But Day again in another year. Again, this is what I didn't want to give away before the show when we were talking.
Mm-hmm.
The moment that we knew that Ryan Day did not change this season, when Devin Brown came in, we were all like, well, that's it. Because again, it's another season that went by and not a backup quarterback was developed. There was no plan B. You have no, I mean, Devin only came in for a couple plays, but we all knew that was it, because we're all like, we know that he's not prepared to play because we haven't seen him play all year. There's no way he's ready for this moment. And it's another year to where he did not develop depth. We saw basically the same starters, there was no like third string running back outside of the MAC, the MAC season that they played. We didn't see that. The receivers are great, and they're really deep at receiver. So we're not really worried about that, but like the rotation, there were several games to where we complained about the rotation of defensive back and not giving younger guys, it's just, again, it was like, just go with what got you there and you'll accidentally win the game. He coaches most big games that he hopes he'll accidentally win it. And it just hasn't happened. When they got the ball back up 6 versus Oregon, no plan to end that game. All they got to do is go down and get any kind of points, and they beat Oregon. They go, whatever, they punted. Let's put it that way. Just things like that. So like, once again, and here's the number one thing that bothers me about Day. And I want to be clear. Like, I still want to see what happens in the playoffs. I'm not, I don't think he's right for this job. I'm not saying he couldn't become right. I keep saying that. I'm not saying he can't, but I've said it a million times on your show. Every time we do this, this is not the job that you learn on the job training. And that's what's killing him. But the number one thing is, again, I still don't believe And this is how I judge coaches. If you take the two teams and you flip the head coaches, how would it be? And I think if you flip the head coaches Saturday, Sherman Moore's Ohio State Buckeyes would have beat Michigan by 35 because of talent level and the skill set and everything that they had available. And Day doesn't do it again. He hasn't beat a team equal to him. Maybe, and we keep going back to this silly Clemson game, but I think we're just past that. I think we got to be past 2020 Clemson and still hanging a hat on that. Penn State, I don't think was an equal team that day. If he beats them in the playoffs, I'll say it is. I will say, and that was a good victory. But still, it wasn't, it wasn't perfect. But so it's again, it's supposed to be like, I can beat you with yours and I can beat you with mine. And Ryan Day is not that coach. He still wins based on talent week in and week out. The upside, the one check mark he gets, he keeps that talent coming in as of right now.
So when you think about Urban Meyer at Ohio State, you think about fiery guy, sometimes a guy that sometimes piss you off a little bit to kind of motivate you. I believe he told Joshua Perry, first time he saw him, I would have never recruited you. Yep. The next thing you know, Joshua Perry's making big plays in the playoffs. So I'm thinking that's some really psychotic psychology that he's using, but it works. I'm not saying Ryan Day should use that, but Urban's guys are for the most part, always ready to play.
Yep.
Big games, you don't really expect Urban's guys to not get the job done. Yeah, there was the occasional Urban Meyer letdown. Some of that was due to coaching. It wasn't due to the players being able to get the job done. And I say that because the only time Ryan Day has beat Michigan is what I call it was with Urban's guys. Those weren't his recruits. And what we got right now, I don't think these players are trash. These are NFL caliber guys. Mm-hmm. First, second, third round, fourth round guys. I don't think the players are the issue. It's his ability to properly use the players that are on the team that he's brought in. And that's a problem. That's a big, big problem. And you mentioned that 2020 win against Clemson. Jeff, that might be the only team that he's beat that's his caliber. That's his even. Michigan, 2019. I forget how good Michigan was, but that was a blowout anyway. Beating Wisconsin in the Big Ten Championship 2019. That Wisconsin team was not on your level. Northwestern in 2020. They clearly weren't on your level. You almost lost the game to a team that you shouldn't have been. That game should have been close. But outside of that, you lost to Oregon twice. Twice. I don't understand why he talks like he gets it, but his actions show that he doesn't. Or maybe he truly mentally gets it, but there's an issue with trying to get the game plan out and get his guys ready to play. I don't understand it. You tell me you want to start fast. All of a sudden you start slow week after week after week. Same old song and dance, man. A lot of fans want Ryan Day up out of here. This isn't a job where you learn on the job, get the on-the-job training. He needs that. And this isn't a spot for that. And I personally think the pressure is getting to him.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. And I think it has the whole time. I still think, and this is not, I hate to talk about someone's mindset when I've never met him, but what it feels like is he took this job because it was offered. He doesn't feel like I think he likes Ohio State. Mm-hmm. I think he would like them to win, but I think he also becomes a fan as to where when you want to compare him to Urban came there with a mission. Mm-hmm. It was it was just a different mindset about the team, the toughness, and something you said to start, the conversation about Urban. This is the difference between the two. You mentioned how Urban came in and kind of disrespected Josh Perry, definitely on purpose. Urban did everything on purpose. Josh Perry became a starter, but also what else happened is Josh Perry lost his job late in 2014, the national title team, to younger, better players. But Josh Perry still kept doing a great job as basically if I remember, maybe the fourth linebacker or whatever. But still was there to do his job, as to where we talked about Day all season. He doesn't move off of players. It feels like he lets his coordinators run the show. It doesn't feel like his coordinators are playing the same game. Like it doesn't feel like the offense matches what the defense does, or vice versa. For years, it's like it does not feel like he has a stamp, a fingerprint on this team. It feels like he's kind of just kind of like for lack of a better term, like a CEO, but it's just not working.
Right.
And I think he's a smart guy. I think actually his earlier years, he was advancing a little better.
Yeah.
And then once he's like, well, I got to get some, I think he totally lets, my guess is that he doesn't really feel like he's in charge of Chip Kelly, because there's no way that they would have not had a better direction.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way after, when they came out of the turnover and ran the ball the first time and the fans started booing, if every fan in the stadium knows that was a mistake, you've got to stop that. And Urban was always able to switch gears at any moment and be like, okay, this isn't going to work. If something worked, okay, we're going to do this until it doesn't work anymore, whether it was at Florida, any of the schools he coached in. And, it's just, again, we just see it time and time out of day. Like, let's hope your athletes play really great. But then for Saturday, the mistake was to not use them. Like, I would rather lose by 50 and throw 8 deep balls to Jeremiah Smith. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, like none of that'll ever make sense. And it feels like he's always, in retrospect, like after the game, I think he probably watches the tape and says, man, I did this. He doesn't, in the moment, he doesn't see the mistakes. He just keeps hoping for, it feels like the entire season for probably 2 years has been like, any minute Henderson's going to break off a 70-yard run and get me out of this. Isn't that what it felt like Saturday? Like,
Yeah.
any minute one of these guys are just going to accidentally break and that's what Michigan actually wound up doing. They finally broke one run and won the game. Broke one run and won the game. And it just felt like Dave in the big games for years has been like, eventually somebody will break a tackle and win this game like Zeke Elliott used to do. And it didn't happen. And he never had a plan B.
So Jeff, I'm going to close this conversation out with a little question that I'm going to answer first, and then throw it over to you. I don't want to throw the question to you first. People want to know if Ryan Day should be let go. If the AD at Ohio State, Ross Bjork, should just say, Ryan, you're a good guy. I think Ryan Day's a generally good guy. Based off the things that he said and the things that he had said about just his life in general, he sounds like a genuinely good guy. But the question is, should Ryan Day be let go? Barring something crazy happening in the playoff, some crazy success, they don't have to win the national championship, but they get to the Final Four and they look competitive, he can keep his job. But I'm more in line with it's time to move on from Ryan Day. National championship might be the only way he keeps his job, because that's one of the things you say that you need to do that haven't done yet. But I'm ready to go, man. Like, I'm ready to move on. And I don't really care about, who's going to take the job. I don't know, man. It's Ohio State. You got money. Like, if it's buyout of $37 million, them boosters got the bread. I'm not worried about like the buyout money. I'm not worried about that at all. I think it's time to move on. I genuinely think, and I was more emotional about this last year after the Cotton Bowl. I'm not going to be as emotional right now, because I think we have seen what Ryan Day is as a coach. And I think it's time to move on to find somebody else to take over as head coach of Ohio State.
Yeah, I do. And I agree with what you said. I mean, there's been times, and sometimes I regret it, sometimes I don't, that I was just like, fire Ryan Day, blah, blah, blah. I really have grown to like the guy. I really do. It does not bother me that he's my coach, as far as like the way he represents everything he says. I hate to say it's not a personal thing. I just don't know. Like there's times that you're not the guy for the job. And that doesn't mean that, like, honestly, Urban Meyer, I don't think is a great person, but that's the type of insane, person that you have to be to do the job. I wish that we lived in a world where Ryan Day could be our coach and we didn't mind finishing second every year, but it's not where we're at with Ohio State. It's not where the money's at. It's not where the boosters are at. And in all honesty, like Harbaugh said, years ago, like, Ryan Day didn't have to fight to get this position. He didn't have to do what like Indiana's coach had to do. He didn't have to do what the Nick Sabans of the world had to do to get, to the level. And I think there's a world to where, like, if he does that, he could be the coach at Ohio State. But it's, I still will always believe that NFL mentality has leaked into the program, and NFL plays a game to where, honestly, you can lose 5 games a year. You don't have rivalry games. You don't have the passion. Your players are professionals. You don't have all the outside stuff. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? It's more of a business. And I
Yeah,
really think, and I think that's why Ryan Day's done pretty good this year because, college football is becoming that business.
it is.
But I think the youth development part of it, the handling players and things like that, I don't know. It doesn't feel like he wants to do it or is doing it. And so I think this team was pretty good because he had a bunch of, for college standards, grown-ups playing.
Yeah, sure did.
But I think especially when it's time to develop and it's time to the youth, I did beat it like a dead horse. We just haven't saw it, and I just don't think that's him. It just doesn't feel that way. I do think there's a world where Ryan Day is going to be a good football coach somewhere. And, the sad story is going to be like, oh, he didn't beat Michigan, but he won 2 Super Bowls, not as a head coach, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like let's put it this way. He does deserve to be a football coach and he's going to be a good one. I just don't know if this is going to happen. And no, I don't know who it's going to be, but trust me, there are handfuls of coaches out there who are like, let me have Ohio State's roster. I will destroy everybody in my path. And those guys honestly deserve a shot with one of the best rosters in football.